north, the city's largest employer, which is Little Creek Point Beneficiary Base. South is Princess Anne Commons, where we have our large venues, the 20,000 person amphitheater, and our growing community bio medical campus, including past here, and then east of the ocean front. Again, those are all funded studies. But the next study that is funded and is moving forward right now is going to the region's largest employer, and that's the world's largest naval base. And 23% of those commuters, or the majority of those commuters, come from Virginia Beach. And so, in addition to the economic development value I'll tell you about, you really start to have commuting value once you're in the heart of the developed part of the city, Virginia Beach Town Center, and then you have commuting opportunity at the Naval Station North. These are the costs. This is if it's without contingency and with contingency. So somewhere between the city's costs, between 59 million and 88 million. Some may say, well, these state dollars are still taxpayer dollars. They are. But we still pay, whether it stays here or goes to other part of the Commonwealth. And that program's not going away. You still pay for it. It's just whether or not you stay here, you benefit from that mobility and economic growth. To give you some context, one intersection, you hit a golf ball across $90 million for Kempsville, Wichita Road. 50 pedals on a bicycle over Lesser Bridge, $120 million. 1/4 mile, $408 million. One part of the I-64 interchange, you're looking at $345 million built in 2 phases. It does include a flyover over the interstate connecting Cleveland Street to Greenwich Road to really connect the new town into Brookings. Okay, thank you. Well, after this, talk about trans-oriented development, I'm going to run through, and millennials are now the fastest growing part of the workforce. I want to show you the increase in value of TOD, and that means $165 million more cash revenue to the rest of the city within a half-mile corridor. In terms of jobs, as I wrap up here, 10,500 more jobs. This has been endorsed by Dr. Agarwal, the Director of Economic Forecasting of Old Main University. And I have those studies here if you'd like to see them. Dr. Summers did say that maybe we could see the simulation video of HRT showing what the project would look like if it were built. That's about 3.5 minutes. We have time to do that. With that, I'll stand by for any questions you may have, and thank you for having me. Whenever the break is time. Give me some more time. Hey man, you said 30 seconds. Go to 5 twice. I'll need 5. So let's go back, if I could, to slide number 30. Slide 30. Anybody would take the challenge, give me 30 slides. So where are we at? We just got the operating and maintenance costs. This timing was already down in terms of we were progressing the project, but we received direction from a 9-2 vote of council last May. That's why it's moving forward. And we have all the next steps lined up. We have 4 design build consortiums, national and international firms that are looking to bid on this when we go out the end of November. In summary, we're down. The project is trending down in terms of costs. $67 to $98 million less than it was even a year ago. Bus service, we're looking at more than doubling that. It's just over 1% of the city's budget when you operate light rail and bus service, doubling bus service, and it's critical that they be operated together. $165 million of new tax revenue that is used throughout the city. Right now, the town center itself gives out about $72 million for the last 10 years just in business taxes that benefit the rest of the city. That new development translates to 10,500 more jobs versus the Virginia Employment Commission's just their stagnant baseline if you did not extend light rail here. And again, these studies have been validated by Dr. Bernard Agarwal, Director of Economic Forecasting for Old Main University. And we're looking at, no matter how you look at it, how you slice it up, you have a couple million boardings versus folks that would be in their car with you beside us on the road. You're looking at anywhere from 1.5 to 2.3 million boardings a year. So with that, I'll stand by. If we could do the video, that would be great.
Good evening, my name is Reed Griebman. I'm here from your Virginia Beach Tea Party, and I'm representing the loyal opposition to this project. I've been opposed for this for many, many years, and you just heard a lot of amazing statistics and numbers, and it just had to make me laugh because anybody can sell anything if they throw the right stuff at you. And they were talking about millions of riders, but they're not telling you that it's 1,100 people a day along the 3.4 mile train for between $250 million to $300 million. They're telling you that the numbers trend down, but the reality was when HRT built the first 7.4 mile train in Norfolk, they were 40% over budget, and they were way off the mark. So we'll have to go. They quoted a lot of numbers, but what they didn't quote and tell you about was that the federal government did a study called the Draft Environmental Impact Study. And this is the Virginia Beach Transit Extension Study. And it essentially debunked everything the city just told you. It states clearly in this study it will not reduce traffic congestion, it will not produce transit-oriented development, it will actually increase transit traffic where the train crosses the street. It isn't even better for the environment. The Wall Street Journal had an article this weekend, if you looked at it, that talked about it and explained how this is actually wasting more energy than it is to drive your car. Of course, the question is, what would you want to do to build the city better? Instead of using an outdated technology, we should probably look to real solutions that are beneficial in the future. If you take a time on your way out, I put this information together for you. Uber's talking about autonomous cars and autonomous aircraft as a solution. That's a vision for the future. The train they're talking about we had from 1885 to 1947. It's old technology. It's a trolley, an overhead cantilever train. While I may be an expert on this, we thought we'd give you guys a treat. So we brought in this evening a national expert on light rail. And he's going to address to you tonight and give his presentation. And this is Randall O'Toole, a Cato Institute Senior Fellow, publisher of countless books such as The Vanishing Automobile and Other Urban Myths, The Best Laid Plans. And this gentleman, Mr. O'Toole, is going to educate you on the truth about light rail from a national perspective and a local perspective. So please give us a round of applause for a national speaker, Randall O'Toole.
All right, thank you very much for coming and for having me here. I actually love trains. I helped restore this steam locomotive, which is the third most powerful operating steam locomotive. Unfortunately, the Norfolk and Western 611 got restored and turned us from number 2 to number 3. But I love trains, and I would do anything I can to support trains if they made sense. Light rail doesn't make sense. It's functionally obsolete. It doesn't make sense anywhere in the world for a simple reason. It's outdated technology. It's over 100 years old, the basic technology behind it. Now, 100 years ago, more than 1,000 cities in America had streetcars or some kind of light rail. And between then and 50 years ago, all but 6 of them got rid of their streetcars and replaced them with buses. Not because of some General Motors conspiracy, but because buses are cheaper, they're faster, they're safer, and they can actually move more people than light rail. And now how can that be? A bus maybe holds 40 passengers, a light rail car might hold 150 passengers. But for safety reasons, you can only move about 1 light rail train on a route every 3 minutes. So about 20 trains an hour. And if you have 3-car trains, that means you can run about 9,000 people an hour on light rail. Light rail, the term light does not mean it's lightweight. Light rail cars actually weigh more than heavy rail cars. The term light rail refers to the fact that it's light capacity transit. It's low capacity transit. What's high capacity transit? Well, buses. There are cities in the United States that run down city streets 160 buses an hour. And those 160 buses can move a lot more people than a light rail train. If you use what are sometimes called bendy buses or articulated buses, you can move 50% more people down those city streets. I was recently in Istanbul, and they have a bus rapid transit lane where they run a bus every 14 seconds. They're moving as many people as the Washington, D.C. subway lines can move. So light rail is low capacity transit. Buses are much higher capacity transit. If you want to move a lot of people, buses are the way to go. But guess what? Virginia Beach, Norfolk doesn't have a demand to move a lot of people. Here's the capacity to move light rail, for light rail to move people. It's about 9,000 people an hour. And the capacity for buses is over 10,000 people, depending on whether you're using bendy buses or not. But they're only moving about 500 people or so per hour on the tied light rail line. And even if you increase that somewhat, it's not going to come close to capacity. The great thing about buses is that they work in low capacity situations as well as high capacity situations where light rail just costs a lot of money. There are places where rail transit makes sense, where you have lots and lots of jobs concentrated in one small area. Manhattan has 2 million jobs in 7 square miles of land. And you can see Chicago, Washington, San Francisco, Boston have lots of jobs and lots of people are taking transit. Norfolk has 24,000 jobs in downtown. Virginia Beach has even fewer jobs downtown, and most of them don't take transit to work. Transit does not make sense, rail transit does not make sense in a place like Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Newport News. Light rail doesn't make sense anywhere, but no rail transit makes sense here. You can see how little use transit is here, is that buses carry only about 7.7 people on average over the course of the day in 2014. Whereas in other cities, they're carrying twice as many, 3 times as many people because transit is a lot more useful in those places. Light rail here is also similarly empty. Only about 16.9 people over the course of a day on a light rail car here. In other places, it can be double that. So I grew up in Portland, Oregon. They built a light rail line there. You've probably heard about how wonderful it is. In Portland, they built this light rail line, and I don't want to say nobody rides it, but one time a train came into downtown Portland with only 1 passenger on board. Now, coyotes like to go where they know they can find solitude from people. And this coyote jumped on board and enjoyed the ride. In fact, it turns out this coyote was riding the light rail rather regularly. In 1980, before they built any light rail lines, 9.9% of commuters in the Portland area took transit to work. And then they built 5 light rail lines since then. Today, the percentage of commuters taking transit to work is all the way up to 7.9%. Light rail has done more harm than good because it's been so expensive they've had to cut back on bus service, and that's hurt transit in the region. And it's not just Portland. Cities all over the country have built rail transit, and transit ridership has declined. Per capita transit ridership has devastatingly plummeted because they had to cut back on bus service to pay for rails. One of the reasons why they have to make the cutbacks is because every light rail project ever built since 1985 has had huge cost overruns, an average of 45% cost overruns. And then they say, oh, well, Hampton Roads Transit issued this press release. The light rail exceeds expectations. You can't read the fine print, but it says, we're carrying 5,600 people a day in the first month after it opened. The expectation in this document, which was submitted by the Federal Transit Administration, was that it was going to carry 10,400 people a day, a weekday, in its first year. And in fact, it never came close. The first year it carried about 4,200, less than half of the expectation. The most recent year it was about 5,700. So it's fallen far short of expectations. When they say it exceeds expectations, what they mean is their hype exceeds your expectation for their grip on reality. It's already been pointed out that light rail actually makes congestion worse. This is from the DEIS, the Draft Environmental Impact Statement for the Norfolk Light Rail, and every intersection it showed congestion got worse if you built the light rail. For the statement for the Virginia Beach Light Rail, they say, well, there's some intersections where it's going to get a lot better. But if you read it carefully, it's because they're planning on mitigating the impact of the light rail. And they really improve congestion when they do that. But why not just skip the light rail and mitigate the impact of the congestion? You can have the congestion relief for a couple $100,000 instead of spending $300 million on a light rail line that in most intersections is going to make congestion worse. It's already been mentioned that the Wall Street Journal says that light rail wastes energy. They actually quoted me on that. The Norfolk Light Rail uses so much energy that if you drive around all by yourself in a Hummer, you're more energy efficient than the Tide Light Rail. It also emits a lot of greenhouse gases because fossil fuels are burned to generate the energy to move the light rail. And so you're not as efficient if you're driving alone, but the average SUV and the average car is more greenhouse gas friendly than the Tide Light Rail. Now then they say, well, the light rail stimulates development. Well, it turns out it doesn't stimulate development. What it does is it stimulates more subsidies to development. Portland built its light rail line in 1980. They zoned everything along the line for redevelopment, and 10 years later, nothing happened. So they decided to subsidize it, and since then they've given almost $2 billion in subsidies to developers along the light rail lines. And the result is, yes, they've got new development, but they could have gotten it with the subsidies alone. They didn't need to spend another $5 billion on light rail. Now this gentleman is named Peter Rogoff. He was President Obama's pick to be head of the Federal Transit Administration. And he visited a lot of transit agencies, and he noticed, first, they were all complaining about how their rail systems were falling apart and they needed money to rehabilitate them. And then he said they'd bring out the four-color glossy brochures and ask him for money to build new rail lines. He'd say, why are you asking us to partner in building new rail lines when you can't afford to maintain what you've got? And he did a study. He found out that the rail transit in the United States has about a $70 billion maintenance backlog, and it's gotten worse since then because they're spending less on maintenance and they need to even keep it in its current state of poor repair. He said that bus rapid transit makes a lot more sense than light rail in most communities. Here's a bus rapid transit line in Los Angeles. They built dedicated lanes and they run one bus every 8 minutes. That means the road is empty 98% of the time. They're only using 2% of the capacity of the road. That's just as stupid as light rail. Kansas City runs bus rapid transit mostly on streets that are shared with other vehicles. Because the bus rapid transit buses don't stop as frequently, they're just about as fast as if they had dedicated lanes, and they get just as many new riders. They get 30 to 50% new riders for running buses on shared streets. And that's the way to go in the short run. In the long run, we're going to have something different. This is a Google driverless car. You may recognize the guy who's standing next to the door there. I rode around in this car in Washington, D.C. Nobody had their hands on the wheel. Driverless cars are real. They're going to be here very soon. Oh, that sound is going to be on. This is a valet parking car. The car is programmed to know all the parking spaces in the area, and you get out of the car, you go to work, or you go to a restaurant or whatever, you say, car, go park yourself. And it'll drive around until it finds a car with an empty space, and it parks itself there. Now you might not want to do that. You might tell your car to go home and pick up the kids and take them to school. Or tell your car to go out and work for Uber, make some money for you. But this technology is available now. Ford Motor Company, the CEO of Ford Motor Company, has promised that in 5 years, they're going to have fleets of driverless cars in our cities going around that you can have an app on your smartphone, have it come and pick you up at your door and take you where you want to go, and it's going to cost you less than riding the light rail. So why is anybody going to want to ride light rail when the driverless car takes you door to door, costs less, and is a lot more convenient? The answer is they won't be. And so if you decide to vote for light rail here, you're going to be building a white elephant that in 10 years nobody will be using, hardly anybody will use between now and then, but nobody will be using in 10 years. The only people who will benefit are the contractors who built it. Now, if you don't believe me from this short speech, go to cato.org and look me up. I've written more than 24 papers on what's wrong with rail transit and why we should rely on buses instead, and in the long run, why autonomous vehicles or self-driving cars are going to make the difference. I've also got some books on there that you might want to look at as well, but all the papers are downloadable for free. Thank you very much.
How you doing, folks? My name is Mark Bernaducci. I'm a volunteer with BB Connects. I'm also a resident of Virginia Beach. I've called Virginia Beach my home since 1995. Been a long time now. So I'm a volunteer and I have no political agenda. I'm not a developer. I'm just very passionate about this issue and offering this area multimodal transit solutions. I'd like to kick off our segment in support of light rail with a video, if I may. Get that going. And this video is man on the street video, if you will. Real people, real feedback.
Politicians, taxes, and traffic. What we hate even more is the idea that our traffic and congestion is projected to increase by like 300% over the next 25 years, despite billions in planned road projects.
Traffic around here is the worst.
Definitely always late for work. You know, my mom's like, "Where are you?" I'm just stuck in traffic.
I've never missed work, but I have been like 30 minutes late because of traffic on the boulevard. Yep.
I'd say at the end of my day, I'm in traffic for at least an hour.
Guys, we can't pave our way out of this problem.
If we vote yes on November 8th, not only do we get the next leg in what will one day be a much larger transportation system for the region, we also nearly double our bus service in Virginia Beach. And we get a great running, biking, and walking path right next to the tracks. You might even see some old school rollerblades out there.
It doesn't make sense to have this short distance. I mean, if they can get it all the way to the ocean front, I think that would be great, and they just need to connect it and keep it going.
I think it would do a lot in the way of easing traffic. That would be real nice.
In the words of the opposition, it's not just your self-entitled, know-it-all, basement-dwelling millennials who are going to benefit. Nope. All of our hardworking, civic-minded, tax-paying, voting citizens who already voted for the light rail in 2012 are going to be hooked up. This thing connects to our two major financial and entertainment centers, making it good for business and fun.
I mean, ultimately, I think it would pump more money into the economy from people from Virginia Beach going to Norfolk and people from Norfolk going to Virginia Beach.
I think it's going to open up a lot to the business area. To get customers to your spot by transit or by driving, transit's probably one of the best ways.
I think it would be helpful for, if there's like a big event to get in and out, like for example, like fireworks going to the ocean front. It's not something that we would do unless there was a light rail going there, because it just takes so long to get out of there. And as far as like kids' bedtimes, you want to just kind of get out.
I love public transportation because you can actually get things done while you're traveling. I also like public transportation with a child because I can entertain her. She thinks it's fun, and she's not stuck in a car seat for 45 minutes in traffic.
There's more. Virginia's already paying $155 million of the total cost. It's a use it or lose it situation. As for the rest of the cash, the city already has it set aside. Newtown Road, end of the line. Where do we go from here? We got nothing. But we vote yes. We get more light rail crossing into Virginia Beach. So let's get connected, people. Next steps. The airport, base, the oceanfront, ODU, Greenbrier, places we need to be.
This is what you do. Show up on November 8th, vote yes, and you're done.
Let's turn these train tracks into rail tracks. Come to our Virginia Beach Connects Facebook page, tweet the hashtag #VoteYes, and get on board VB. Check out some cool links, learn some new facts, and share them with your friends. But most importantly, vote yes on November 8th.
Okay, we'll cue up the presentation in a little bit here. So that's real feedback from real people in this area. So we're going to focus on that. That wasn't my doing. Somebody creative with videos, but thank you very much. So, as I said, I'm a volunteer. I represent Virginia Beach Connects. And this is more, you hear a lot of talk about, you know, it's only going 3.1, 3.3 miles from Newtown Road to Town Center. You heard a little bit about ridership from both Reed and Mr. O'Toole. You know, I think we can both agree that the Norfolk Tide, confined within Norfolk city limits, doesn't really go anywhere that it needs to go. You saw a little bit of a vision there about going to the airport and going to the naval station. That's the future vision of the network. But we have to start laying the groundwork and connecting those places in our region that people need to go. You saw the presentation from Mr. Solis. 23% of the people that work at the naval station come from Virginia Beach. So we need to offer multimodal transportation solutions, and we have to do it in a piecemeal fashion. Trying to do it all at once is too expensive. The nature of these projects are that they are expensive. The good thing is we have the state behind us committing $155 million, and we have some financing tools arranged for us by the state, so we have a very good financial climate to take advantage of extending the light rail from Newtown Road to Town Center. So, John Martin, an independent consultant like Mr. O'Toole perhaps, if Virginia Beach doesn't proceed with the light rail extension, it could set the region back hurting Virginia and regional mobility for years to come. I personally believe that. I actually think that we're a little bit behind the 8 ball. Rather than wait and say, gosh, we should have thought about offering multimodal solutions a decade ago, why don't we stay a little bit ahead of the growth so that people don't really feel the pinch and we have too many people and we can't move people around. I'll talk a little bit more about this later on. Congestion. This is another by our Planning Development Commission. 300% increase in traffic congestion measured by the time wasted in traffic over the next 25 years, despite approximately $13 billion in roadway infrastructure, transportation infrastructure projects. So my first question to Mr. O'Toole would be, with all the bus rapid transit and the buses and bus improvement in bus transit as part of this, the bus rapid transit and these automated cars, where are they going to go? They have to go on the roads. And if we don't have enough roads, we have to start building roads. Okay? So I don't know how we project this statistic and mitigate this statistic by putting more vehicles on a road. So light rail is the backbone of the 21st century transportation system. They argue that it's antiquated technology. I would argue that it's proven technology. If you want to go to automated cars or magnetic levitation railways, it's going to cost more money. It's affordable and it's proven. And also you see the little icon on the top there, there's a railway car and there's a bus car. Again, I want to emphasize, part of this project is also a doubling of the bus service, an improvement in paratransit, and those express routes that Mr. Solis talked about earlier in his presentation. And so these are cities, and Portland is included in this analysis. These are cities that have experienced success with their light rail. I guess even the Coyote enjoyed his ride on the light rail car, because Portland is one of the success stories here, as well as Charlotte, Denver, Phoenix, Minneapolis, Salt Lake City, and others. And the Charlotte mayor has been here testifying to the success of light rail in her city, in Charlotte. And I do business in Charlotte, and it is successful, and I use that light rail. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Josh Schulman, and he'll take you from here.
Thank you. Hey, folks. My name is Josh Schulman. I'm with Virginia Beach Connects as well. And I'm also the president of a young professionals organization in Town Center in the Central Business District. And, but I grew up in Detroit. And before I go through some of these other cities, I want to give you a little quick anecdote. And some of you have heard it before, and I apologize if you have, but I worked downtown Detroit back in '04, right before everything just went to, you know what, in a handbasket. And I had to leave because it was a single sector economy, there were no jobs. And what ended up happening is I moved to DC and I lived downtown, lived that walkable lifestyle, really enjoyed it. But I wanted to raise a family and I couldn't live there forever. And I just happened upon a wonderful opportunity, came down here to Virginia Beach, and I became active and enjoyed living and working in Town Center. And then one day I heard Mr. Atkinson invite all of us young people to move away if we just so happen to disagree with his worldview on public transportation and dense urban living. That provoked me to take action and start talking about it, because I think our young people really need to stay here. And this Wall Street Journal article is not an article. Let's just clear this up. This is a column. The Wall Street Journal said none of this. Katie Odell said all this. And it just so happened to get printed in the Wall Street Journal. She's a columnist. This is her opinion. And any objective read of this, you can pretty much see that none of it is really based in fact at all. So with that, there are some really important examples that we can see Charlotte, for example, we've got $1.5 billion, it's actually a little closer to $1.4 billion in development along the line. We have Norfolk that's experienced over $500 million, or almost $500 million in transit-oriented development. And we've seen, I mean, Norfolk gets it. I mean, have you gone downtown and enjoyed just being down there and just seeing how vibrant it is? I mean, I love it down there. And I wish that more people from Virginia Beach could experience that and enjoy that too. And connect to the museums, and connect to the, Nauticus, and connect to all the wonderful entertainment options that they have in Norfolk, but we also have here in Virginia Beach. And going back to this map, we had, Mark had mentioned that we had back in, what was it, May or June, a transformational transit summit. We had people from all these cities come here and tell us, you guys are almost there. You guys are almost here, so close. And all you gotta do is just get over the hump. And that's where we're at right now. We gotta get over the hump. So, development, it's not a bad word, because it means new businesses. I mean, when you invest in fixed infrastructure, you send a message to the private sector. This is something that buses can't do. Bus routes can change. But if you invest in fixed infrastructure, you send a message to the private sector that this asset is going to be here for a while. And it incentivizes them. Because when I went back to Detroit just a little bit ago, driving my kids down Woodward Avenue, the Motor City is putting a light rail system in there. And I will tell you, I was astonished at the amount of foot traffic, activity, and the buy-in from the public sector and the community. I mean, it was a city transformed. More jobs, which means more tax revenue, and then lower taxes. ADP, almost 2,000 new jobs, and they cited as a reason that they moved to Norfolk, the tide. And they also would love to see it come to Virginia Beach. And if we don't get it to Virginia Beach, what are we telling employers like that? We don't want you here. We don't want your workforce here. We have wonderful assets. Let's connect them. The ridership figures, 1,100 riders a day. What they don't tell you is that only counts weekday riders that go to and from work. That does not count business travelers, museum goers, festival goers, these people, tourists. So, I mean, let's put it in perspective here. And let's really, if we're gonna talk about numbers, let's really talk about the numbers. I'm gonna turn it back over.
Thank you, Josh. Go over to the other side. I feel constrained back here. Better start doing cartwheels. Okay, so who wants light rail? These are real people with real testimonials, okay, and real quotes. I won't go through them all, but I'll spend a little time here so that you get some time to read them. But a whole wide range of people. Hampton Roads is a very diverse community. It's becoming more and more diverse as each year passes, with people coming in. I've met a lot of people from a lot of other countries. When I moved here in 1995, to me, comparatively, it was somewhat of a homogeneous community. But over the time, I've met more people from other countries, South America, Europe, who were here. Some of that is influenced by Navy employment, et cetera. But it's great, and I enjoy that. And I travel to Europe, and I do want to make a point. Saying, Mr. O'Toole quoted that, I heard him say that light rail makes no difference, doesn't make sense anywhere in the world. I don't know if you've traveled anywhere else in the world, but they have awesome rail systems, and I can see a lot of the world on a rail train than I can in a car. So I'm not sure what he bases that claim on, but I've used the rail system all over this world, all over Europe, all over South America, and it's a great way to see the country. Instead of keeping your eyes on the road, you can look out and enjoy the scenery and actually get some work done. Okay, so the future transportation system will connect our community. Again, we have to connect regions, we have to connect key destinations. That includes the naval base, that includes the airport, it includes town center, which is a central business district of this city. Okay, we've got to connect commerce, connect workforces, connect consumers. And so this is the vision. Now, again, I don't want to mislead, but we're talking about connecting Newtown to Town Center, November 8th. It's a piece of the puzzle. All these other colorful pieces, you know, are the future vision, and that's a future challenge. But right now, our challenge and our project is from Newtown Road to Kellam Station. Just to give you a little bit of a legend, which is not on here, this dotted line is a shared use pathway. If this gets constructed, we're gonna have a nice shared use pathway that Mr. Solis actually talked about along this segment of the line. And I know that Norfolk is working on extending it westward from Newtown Road. So essentially, over time, we'll have a shared use pathway that we can get from the oceanfront all the way to Norfolk. And again, the vision to extend it all the way to the resort area, the things that they're planning in the resort area. Princess Anne Station, we have Centerra Princess Anne Hospital here. We have Centerra Virginia Beach General Hospital here. We have Greenbrier here and Regent University, an educational area here. We have the airport here for commerce. I use the airport all the time. I'm already executive platinum on American Airlines, and I made that last month. I don't know if I should broadcast that, but I use the airport a lot, and I would love to be able to, you know, take the rail line to the airport and not have to worry about the parking there. So that's the full vision. But November 8th, we're voting for laying the first critical piece of the puzzle, Newtown Road to Town Center.
And Mark, this is important for everybody to realize, and I just want to do it really quick. We are talking about here to here of the train, but this isn't just about the train. I mean, what we're talking about is connecting TCC's campuses with one another via extended bus service. Because not all this stuff has to be a train, not all of it has to be right away. I mean, we've got a new bus route coming down here. I live down here. I'd love to get on an express bus going up to Town Center. So, I mean, we're talking about a new express bus going, you know, this way on the boulevard. So that means people can get from Norfolk to work here at the oceanfront quicker. That means people can get from Greenbrier Mall to Town Center to Norfolk. So it's more than just the train. And also, we've got fiber optic cables coming to Camp Pendleton. What's to say we couldn't use that corridor for a broadband corridor? So there's tons of other uses that we can, and we already own the right of way. So, sorry.
No worries, thank you for that interjection. So, our Mayor Will Sessoms, connectivity is our desire, our destination, it's our destiny. This is the year of connectivity. We have to take advantage of it. Frankly, folks, we have more to lose if we vote no. All the financing that the state has committed, plus the financing for the debt, plus the $20 million that was given by the state to the right-of-way acquisition for the Norfolk Southern Railway. That's more than $205 million. That's not including finance charges. And so the project is estimated to be $243.1 million, which includes, by the way, approximately $30 million in cost overrun contingencies. So that's, in essence, that's a solid worst case scenario. Okay, so the cost contingencies, the city has done a very good job of drilling down on those and making sure that they publish and advertise a solid number. They owe the public that, and I think they've delivered on that as well. And they, in a sense, they under-delivered. We thought about $310 million, and now it's $243, so I applaud them on that. Again, $155 million from the state. That is a use it or lose it. We can't take it and use it for education. We can't take it and use it for parks and recreation. This is Department of Transportation dollars, specifically earmarked for this project. If we don't take advantage of it now, we won't see it again. This money, part of our tax dollars, will be used somewhere else in the Commonwealth for some other transportation project. We need transportation infrastructure improvement here and now. Thank you. I've got my closing stuff. So the way in which Virginia Beach has gone about financing this, and I talked about the $30 million in financing by the state, unprecedented financing terms, essentially 0% financing. The way in which Virginia Beach is going to pay that back is through this 1.8 cent real estate tax for the debt service. We've all been paying this since July 2015, after it was approved in May 2015, okay? And so this debt service is projected to cover the operating and maintenance costs of the light rail all the way through the year 2045. Okay, so there's no more taxes that are going to be levied on the individual or on real estate as a specific result of light rail. They're taking care of it already, and this money is already set aside. To put it in perspective, if your house was assessed at $300,000, this would mean $54 a year out of your pocket towards light rail. I think that's a reasonable investment for multimodal transit solutions in our region. Now, this slide is a little out of date because some new figures have come out. Today, actually, it's not 0.64 anymore. It's 0.57% of the city's budget, as you heard Mr. Solis if you were here at the very beginning. And so I don't know what the new projection will be 3 years out after we implement light rail at this time, but this is what it was, and still admirable numbers, 0.64 to 0.85. Am I done? I don't know if I'm...
Tom, that's 20? Yeah, that's 20.
That's 20? Okay, so, all right, here we go. Go next.
Okay, we will take questions from the audience. We'd like to have you write them down. I've got pens and pads and notepads in the back if you've got a question. I have a few that have been sent in via email, and I'll read those unless I've got somebody here that's got one already. All right. Oh, you do? Okay. There is a proposed park and ride station east of Constitution Drive. What happens to the current standing businesses if light rail passes? Who wants to tackle that?
So unlike a lot of road projects, and you see that with Wichita Phase 2, a lot of the businesses that require along Wichita Road to widen the road, the majority of real estate needed for the light rail extension project has been acquired, and that it's within the 66-foot wide right-of-way. The one main acquisition would be the theater, and that would be to serve as both a hub station at the east side of Constitution Drive, as well as a park and ride and a multimodal station where you can transfer. There's 7 bus bays to transfer to bus service. There's what's called Kiss and Ride for folks to drop you off, pick you up, Uber, Lyft, or taxis to transfer there as well. So to answer your question, that business, either what we have been seeing around the country is that they end up locating into a mixed use opportunity through redevelopment, and they're incorporated into new transit-oriented development.
I'd like to address that question as well.
So let's look at what we already have. Norfolk already built a 7.4-mile train, and they've already got it running. One of the things that's just interesting about what he said is that there's not going to be any more taxes for this, but he just told you a vision about building everything greater than 3.4 miles. When the Norfolk train was built, many, many businesses not only lost business, but went out of business. Why? Because of the construction and the change drove them out of business. The vision that they're talking about in this particular 3.4-mile train runs right along Southern Boulevard and targets tons of small minority mom and pop businesses that line that corridor, and get this, affordable housing. They're going to be tearing down limited affordable housing to redevelop all along Columbus Street. So it doesn't just impact the businesses, but it impacts people who can't afford to live in tall rise, brand new urban redevelopment, unless we go to Section 8 housing. So if you look at the true facts about Norfolk, there was a tremendous adverse impact on the businesses along the rail line who were there before the train. So I just want to point that out. It's not all roses.
All right, thank you. Another question from the audience. All the buses Mr. O'Toole spoke about must have dedicated road lanes to be efficient. What would it cost to build those lanes, and how many homes would be affected to do so?
I'll start with that.
So the study that we had, the draft environmental impact study that was done by the federal government, that studied bus rapid transit along the same corridor as light rail. We already purchased the light rail right-of-way from Newtown Road down to the ocean front. There was a combination of money. It cost $40 million. That right-of-way exists today. Now, one of the reasons the light rail is going to be so expensive is it's going to build flyovers over major intersections to try to reduce traffic congestion. And that's what costs a lot of money, is the flyovers. We can already run a bus rapid transit along that existing right-of-way and achieve more than what this system is proposing. There's nothing that buses don't do that a light rail does, except the one thing the gentleman mentioned. I think it was Josh. If you have a fixed system, investors are more inclined to invest in there because it's not going anywhere. But here's the thing you gotta understand. It's not going anywhere. In Virginia Beach, buses make far more sense. So the answer to your question is this. It doesn't cost one dime more to run articulated bus rapid transit right down that same corridor than it's gonna cost for this light rail. You can even build the flyovers. The difference is the cost of putting it in place is far less than the light rail, and it serves more people. So the bus rapid transit solution that Mr. O'Toole told you about is a more practical solution for our area. And I want to point out one final point to this. Both of these gentlemen and Mr. Solis representing the city, I kind of feel like it's 2 against 1 here. They tell you that we're going to double the buses with this. Yay, we're going to do that. There's not one thing that stops the city from doubling or tripling the buses today. You don't need a light rail to double or triple the buses. You just make a commitment to it and go do it.
Exactly.
So the notion that you have to have a train to add more buses makes 0 sense. It's ridiculous. It's not even within the realm of sense. What Councilman Moss has proposed that we do instead to determine the demand is to build additional buses and make them free in the city. Let's try a trial program and see what the amount of demand is. And if there is a demand, then that would give you factual information to determine whether this investment of hundreds and hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars is worth it. If not, we can send the buses somewhere else.
Excellent. Excellent.
I just need to clarify that I am not here representing a yes or a no side. The reason why we're here is to talk about the project and the fact that the city did recommend the project moving forward. It's in the city's comprehensive plan. It's been in the city's comprehensive plan in 2003, 2009, and 2016 as a sustainable way to develop and redevelop in Virginia Beach versus sprawling south into the lowest part of our city. And we know how inefficient continuing to sprawl is, but rather protecting our existing suburban neighborhoods. Bus rapid transit, in terms of ridership, would be 20% less ridership. In terms of expanding bus service, you cannot make it free, or arguably you cannot make it free because of what's called Title VI. And that is unless the other 5 participating localities in HRT system also make it free, you cannot make one set of residents more privileged than others in terms of having free versus fair service. That would be something that would heavily need to be looked into in terms of complying with Title VI, if you would like it is today, federal and state funding to help with running those buses. So.
Can I respond to that?
Let's see, Josh, did
Let's
you
go
want
to another question.
But that's inaccurate what he said.
Let me move on to another question. So,
Because I know the facts. He's wrong.
okay, here's a question. If the light rail breaks down, will repairs come out of taxes?
I think I know the answer to that question, and Mr. Solis can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's projected to be $2.7 million a year in operations and maintenance, and that is covered by the 1.8 cent tax increase, which we talked about in the presentation. That funds operations and maintenance through, I believe Mark said 2045, but I think it's 2040.
So the budget that they put together includes operation and maintenance. It doesn't include something horrific like a terrorist attack blowing up the train, but it does include that. But one more time, he's got to tell you the taxes that we increased for the people who pay taxes in here, the money they have to pay, that's only to build a 3-mile train. He's telling you that they're not selling the 3-mile train, they're selling you a vision of 40, 50 miles of train with a lot of buses. Every bit of that is going to increase your taxes to pay for the additional light rail that they're talking about. So that statement is incorrect. And just to address Mr. Solis's point, he gave you a lot of interesting stuff about things, but what he didn't explain to you is that Virginia Beach, being 454,000 residents, can withdraw from the regional authority at City Council's request to the General Assembly. We don't have to be in a regional government. We don't have to let other cities dictate to us what we do in our city. We chose to join these things, but we don't have to do that. And if we withdraw from the Metropolitan Planning Organization, we have enough people to apply for our own federal funds and get our own federal funds under the existing structure as a separate city. If we did that, we wouldn't even have to use HRT, but we could put it out for competitive bid and get a better deal than the horrible deal you get with HRT. So what I'm saying is, while he told you a bunch of things about regional stuff, there's nothing that prevents the city of Virginia Beach from going it on their own and getting out of this cost wasteful regional government. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Very good point.
Okay, here's another question. How exactly does congestion get worse when light rail is introduced into the city?
Well,
Can you all hear me? That's a fact that came out. They were quoting a bunch of information about how the city has planned to do this for years. But the environmental impact study by the federal government didn't come out until February of 2015. And in that study by HDR, Professional Transit People, it proves in the study that along the existing roads where the train crosses at grade level every 10 minutes during peak usage time and the thing comes down, it's going to create traffic gridlock that doesn't exist. In addition, Brian's telling you, and they're all telling you, they're going to double and triple the buses. You ever seen the bus stop in the middle of morning rush hour traffic to pick up one person and create a big backup congestion? You flood our city with these additional